Hey everyone, it's Mr. Welch here. I'm back with another episode for the LPSD Virtual College and Career Fair, and it's my opportunity to sit down today and talk with Dr. Blake Bybee. He is a dentist. He has his own practice in Hidden Springs, Idaho, just outside of Boise, and he's going to talk to us, the field of dentistry and how he got there, what other aspects or other jobs, opportunities fall under the dentist industry, and he gives some of his background, how he got to where he got to, definitely some great advice for our students and things to think about. Even if you're not looking at a dentist field or industry, he gives some great life advice to help you wherever you want to go. So I'm going to turn it over to Blake and be prepared for a great interview.
Hi, well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here with you today and to talk to some of you who may be listening in on this. I'm a dentist in Idaho. I've been practicing for about 7 years now. And, I remember sitting in your shoes as a student, kind of thinking about what I wanted to do. And I always talked about wanting to be a dentist, but never really kind of expected it. And so anyway, we'll talk about a few things today, but the one thing for sure, the one point that I want to make and to get across is that you're capable of doing what you want to do. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but quite often we'll have in our mind an idea of a career or something that we want to pursue. But if you're like me, you probably have in the back of your mind your plan B or plan C that you really think is more realistic. And, I got some good advice along the way, and it really helped me push those other plans kind of more to the side and really focus on becoming a dentist. That was always kind of what I wanted to do. But I never really thought that I was capable of doing it, to be honest. In fact, in high school, my grades were good, but they weren't, I wasn't, the number one in my class or even close to that. And so, the point I want to make is that if you are wanting to pursue something, you should do it, and you should jump in both feet and you go, and work hard and do whatever you can to make that happen. And, because it can, I'm a living example of that if you set your mind to it and you work hard, you don't have to be the smartest in your class. You don't have to come from the best family or the best circumstances. But if you set your mind to it and you work hard and you use the help and the resources that are around you, that you'll get there. And it may take some time and a lot of work, maybe extra effort compared to some of your classmates or friends or colleagues, but that's okay because you can get there if you're determined enough. And so that's the biggest point I want to make, whether we talk about dentistry or anything else, is that you're capable and you should pursue your dreams.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Bybee, I think that's a great thing to start off with, is just understanding, like you said, whatever you want to do, understand that you have the capacity and you're capable of doing what you want to do. And I think you bring up a good point too, that you might have to put in more effort, but I think even doing that, putting in that extra effort can definitely, kind of kickstart you into that right direction. So awesome.
Yeah.
So you're a dentist. You said you've been a dentist for 7 years. You're currently in Idaho. How did you become a dentist? What's the process, for our students to see if they want to pursue dentistry, how to get there, or maybe some, jobs within the dentistry field that make up what you do every day?
Yeah, great question. So as far as the path, there's a lot of different paths that people can take, but one of the most important things is you have to, with any career, whether it's dentistry or anything else, you should kind of get your hands wet a little bit and figure out if that's something you're really interested in. Because sometimes we'll look at someone, we'll say, oh man, I want to be like them, but you really don't understand the ins and outs of what it takes to do what they do. And so talking to people, doing career fairs like this, these are all great opportunities to start to learn more and understand more. And certainly there are things in any career that are going to be a surprise. And But there are things that, even though they're a surprise and even though they may not seem natural at first, for instance, in dentistry, we work with saliva. We're in someone's mouth, and that's a wet atmosphere, and that's someone else's saliva that you're working around. And that can be pretty gross if you think about it. But the reality is that shouldn't be a surprise, but there are surprises to dentistry, just like every career. But the reality is understanding that those surprises don't necessarily have to be a deal breaker unless you make them a deal breaker. I have some colleagues that, that are afraid of blood. They see blood and it kind of makes them squeamish, or at least it did at first, but they found ways to overcome those barriers. And now they're not worried about the blood or the saliva or whatever it may be. So keep that in mind. But there's a lot of paths that can lead someone into dentistry. I'll just kind of start at one level and kind of work through all of them. And so, I'm a dentist. I have several people that I work with. I have dental assistants. So those are the individuals who sit next to me. And when I'm doing treatment, they're giving me instruments, supplies, or whatever I need to. They're an assistant. There are dental assisting schools. Some states allow for on-the-job training. And that can be a great avenue to get used to dentistry and to become familiar with dentistry. Like any career, as you start to get exposed to it, it's like learning a foreign language. There are names, there's instruments, materials, all these new terms that you're unfamiliar with. And so any way that you can start to learn those terms and materials and other things, whether it be dentistry or others, is beneficial. And so an assistant's a great step. And I know of people that have been an assistant and then have moved on to become a dentist, or moved on to other fields in medicine or other things as well. Another person I get to work with are called hygienists. And a dental hygienist, generally they go to 2 to 4 years of school, depending on if they're getting an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. School, like I said, it varies between 2 and 4 years generally, and the cost also varies based upon where you go. Overall, the education is pretty much the same where you go, but there are certain things that you'll get to experience or learn, at different schools. And then lastly is a dentist. So this is one where you generally will need to complete 4 years of undergraduate studies, and you can major in basically whatever you want. I have friends that majored in business. I have friends that majored, a good friend of mine, he was an art history major, and he's a dentist. So you can basically study what you want, but there are certain science prerequisite courses that you'll need to take in college that will allow you to apply to dental school. And I studied biology, partly because I love biology. I love the study of it. I enjoyed it in school, although in high school I didn't get the highest score in the class, like I mentioned earlier, but it's something I enjoy, something that's fascinating to me, nature, that sort of thing. And it also works out well that if you're doing a science major, whether it's chemistry, biology, biochemistry, any of those major types of science degrees, you're going to already be doing most of your prerequisites as far as your major requirements. And so, so you can study whatever you want and do whatever you want, but there's still a core group of classes that you'll need to take to be eligible to apply. The next step is then you take a dental admission test. It's called the DAT, and you score, you get a score on that, and then you apply to dental schools. So it can be quite an overwhelming process, but really you just have to take it one step at a time, and you have to keep your eyes focused on hitting that next step. If you look too far ahead, you want to have your plan in place. So you want to look far ahead, but when you start to take the steps, when you're climbing Everest, you're not looking at the peak the entire time. You're looking down and you're making sure that each step you have a good footing, a good foundation before you take that next step. And if you ensure that you're taking good steps along the way, very small steps, that you're working off a good foundation, you have a good foothold, then that'll get you there. It's going to take time, but it'll get you there. So often people will look at the summit of Everest and get overwhelmed and not want to do it because it seems too overwhelming. But if you take it one step at a time, it's not. And so I'm kind of giving you the overview of how to climb Everest, but understand that there's a lot of little steps along the way. And so you take the dental admission test, like I mentioned, you apply to dental school. I went to the University of Southern California, and in my class, I believe there were about 3,200 applicants that applied the year I went, and they accepted 148. And so you do have some it is a challenge. It is hard to get in, but like I mentioned, I did not have the highest scores in college or in high school. I didn't have the highest dental admission test score, but what I did have was a desire to do it and a work ethic to match that desire. And, I mentioned earlier, it might mean you have to work harder. I had classmates in undergraduate school that they would go home after, they'd go to class, do their homework for half an hour or two, and then go home. And there were many nights that I would arrive to school before most of my classmates. I'd arrive at 6 a.m. and I would stay till 7 or 8 p.m. at night, many days, working hard to make sure I could do it. So anyway, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of how you want to focus, and then it can be a matter of when. Does that help kind of give an overview?
Yeah, it definitely does. And when you were talking, the thought that crossed my mind is, as you're going through dental school, like, because I know in some places you can do like an internship or kind of getting, like you said, getting your feet wet on doing some of those things. Is it possible for a dental student, or I'm not sure, like if while you're going through dental school, or you're also like working, practicing what you're learning, or do you have to wait until you officially complete dental school before you can start moving into like the job field?
Yeah, great question. So there are things that you can do along the way, and some of the requirements as well. And that goes clear back, opportunities from when you're in high school. For instance, I have a high school student that will be a summer intern at my office. It's a paid position, and she's going to be learning some of the training and doing the things that she's capable of and that the state allows her to do within our office. And so it's a great summer job for her and a chance to figure out if that's what she wants to do. And so, the difference may be just reaching out to someone and saying, hey, I'm really fascinated in this. Are there any opportunities for me to work or intern or do something to gain a little more experience? And you'd be surprised, even if there's not a position that's open, you'd be surprised that if you just take that step and you ask someone and reach out and say, hey, I'm really interested in what you do. I'd love to learn more. Are there any opportunities for me to job shadow, to work with, whatever it may be? And you'd be surprised at how many doors that could open just by taking the initiative and asking for an opportunity to do something. And then to also answer your question, once you get into dental school, from day one, depending on which school, some schools, they have medical school and dental school combined for the first 2 years, because you're learning all of the basic anatomy and science of the body and illness and all sorts of things. Some dental schools, a lot of them are separated, and you start from day one starting to really focus in on the mouth and teeth and anatomy and morphology and understanding how the musculature works and that sort of thing. And so, fortunately, I was at a school where they put a very heavy emphasis on the clinical side of dentistry and being proficient. And so we got to start actually drilling on practice teeth within the first few weeks. So I was able to practice for those 4 years of dental school under the supervision of some wonderful clinical staff to help kind of get you ready. And so at about the 2-year mark, so you start out doing cleanings about a year and a half into dental school. So some of the more basic things. And then as you progress and you get better and you improve, you start to do more and more complex things. So, yeah, good question.
Going back to your job shadow comment, it reminded me, I've told you about my experience into the dental field. I had the opportunity, it was thrown to me when I was on my church mission to do some dental work. Um, that's a different story, but no, even just sanitizing and putting the trays together, that was my job to help the dentist who was there, giving his service to, sanitize the tools and get his trays ready. And he even pulled me aside and, kind of just said, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. You want to watch me do what I'm doing?" And seeing, being the person not in the chair gives a little bit, a different view on what's going on and why they're doing what they're doing. And I mean, going before that, I never thought about doing dental work. And for me personally, after that, I'm like, I don't want to do dental work. I got a firm confirmation on, yeah, it's not really for me, but it gave me a different appreciation, now that I had a little bit of hands-on experience on, he let me do the suction on some patients. And but that it was definitely a good experience for me. And like you said, yeah, it gives you a little bit of better understanding on what entails. And obviously there's more that goes in it than my experience that I had. But I would concur with doing the job shadow experience. And it's awesome. So you went to USC and kind of got your went to dental school and got that going. Now, how did you go from a dental student to owning your own practice? Is that
great
kind of the end all goal for a dentist, is to be able to have your own practice?
I think for a lot of people it is, and I think part of the way that I can answer that is to kind of answer why I chose dentistry. I'm putting myself in your shoes and trying to think of the questions that you would ask, and why did I want to become a dentist? Or you can ask yourself, why do I want to be an accountant or an engineer, or those sort of things. There are certainly things that are more natural to each and every one of us, right? Some people are naturally better at math. Once again, those don't have to be a barrier. You don't have to be the expert at something in your class to be good at it. You can still learn and overcome those things. So don't think that what you're good at or what you're not good at are what you can or can't do, because your body is incredible, your mind is amazing, and you can really do more than you think is possible, for sure. But I wanted to go into dentistry because, even when I was a kid, I liked to work with small things. Sometimes, hey, have you ever built model airplanes or model cars, and where you're following instructions and you're kind of doing some tedious things? And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed playing Legos as a kid and building things. I enjoyed working with my hands. Now that, someone that works with their hands, that can open up about every career out there, right? But I also like I mentioned earlier, I enjoyed biology. I love the human body, the study of the human body, and that sort of thing. And so for me, one of my confirmations and things that I really liked, I was a Boy Scout, and one of my leaders was a dentist, and we got to do kind of a career night at his dental office and walk through. And it was after hours. There weren't any patients there. But I remember that night and thinking that was pretty cool, and it would be fun to be like this guy. He has his own practice, and so owning a practice was appealing to me at that point. In addition, relationships. I've always enjoyed relationships, and I valued relationships, especially appreciating people that have reached out to me and helped me along the way. I mentioned before that if you work hard and you take advantage of the resources and the opportunities that come in your path, that you're going to be able to grow much further than you think you are or where you're at now. And this mentor, this scoutmaster of mine, didn't really talk to me a lot about dentistry, but more just the way he acted kind of inspired me and helped me want to do that. One of the confirmations, that I had along the way was I also joined the Army National Guard, and it was a great opportunity, great stepping stone for me. and they pay for your college education. And it's generally a 6-year commitment with them. But you can go to school while you're in the National Guard or the Reserves. They're very similar. And so that's something to consider to help pay for your education. A great opportunity, great experience, a great thing to serve your country, but also to be given opportunities to serve others, to be around other people, to be a leader, and to have your education paid for. And so that's the route that I took, was to have that, the National Guard pay. And so the National Guard paid for all of my undergraduate studies. And then the next step was then, I joined the Air Force following the Army National Guard, and they paid for 3 years of my dental school studies. So that was great. So then, I was a dentist for the Air Force for a few years. As part of the contract, they pay for your education, and then you're a dentist for them, and they're paying you as a dentist. And so you're basically employed by them. You're working for them. And then after I finished that commitment, I decided to buy my own practice. So owning a practice is a lot of fun. There are, any business, right? Any business can be fun. But one of the most rewarding things for me is being a small business owner. And you can be a small business owner in a lot of different careers in a lot of different ways. But one of the most rewarding things for me is to be able to provide an atmosphere for those that I have the opportunity to work with, to allow them to help support and provide for their families. And so for me, there's a large value that I gain in having a business where I have people that I work alongside, and knowing that some of my efforts and some of my hard work are going to help provide for them and their families. And so that's a really rewarding aspect of owning a business. Not every dentist wants kind of that stress, and there's plenty of opportunities to be a dentist and not own your own business. But certainly it can be rewarding on a lot of levels to be a dentist and own your own practice.
Yeah, I think that seeing the kind of behind the curtains a little bit on, you are a dentist, you're also a small business owner, and there's, a lot that goes into kind of doing it all. What, for maybe some students who are looking into becoming a dentist or a dental assistant or hygienist, you need to have the technical knowledge, but what are some of like the soft skills that will help you, be successful at what you do? Because like you said, you're interacting with people all the time, and you're in their mouths. And so what are some of those soft skills that are, not necessarily critical, but are good to have to help you in your job?
Yeah, great question. And a lot of those soft skills I learned along the way through life, right? We're always continually learning some of those skills. And some of these things would benefit you if you're a dentist. They'd benefit you if you're a teacher, a principal, an engineer. The reality is we are all human beings, and we work in a world full of other human beings. And so learning to interact with other human beings and learning from your mistakes. Every single one of us, we bump into people, we do things, and, we occasionally cause frustration. And so I think some of the most important soft skills are being responsible. We talk a lot in my office about making mistakes. Every single person, all of us, we make mistakes every single day. And to me, I have never looked at a mistake as a deal breaker. We're all going to make mistakes. Really, the way that I look from those mistakes is not what did you do, but how can we learn from it, and so that we don't repeat that mistake. And I think that's a very important aspect of any career, but especially dentistry or working with people, is understanding that we are human. We will make mistakes. We will have errors, and that's okay. That's part of the learning process. But it's what we do. The fact that we make mistakes doesn't define us as who we are, but how we respond to those mistakes will. And I think that's an important soft skill to understand, that we're all going to make mistakes, but what do you do? when you're on that horse and you get bucked off, anyone that's ridden a horse long enough has been bucked off, and you're not defined by the getting bucked off, but it's how you get back up on that horse. And so I think that's an important thing, and being responsible just is, as part of that. Another thing that's a soft skill is just trying to train yourself to be disciplined, so that if you say you're going to be somewhere at a certain time, that you're going to be there. The military is exceptional at providing that sort of training environment, because you don't have an option. You are going to be there. You're going to wake up when they tell you to wake up. You're going to go to bed when they tell you to go to bed. So it takes a lot of the thinking out of it, and you just, it allows you to be kind of a robot for a little while with certain things. And but being disciplined is very important. And there's a lot of levels to that. So I've mentioned being responsible. I've mentioned discipline, working hard. It doesn't matter if you're wanting to go into dentistry or any other career, you're going to have to work hard. And part of that is being persistent, to not giving up, understanding, that you're going to get bucked off, but that you're going to be somewhat stubborn, and you're going to continue to get up on that horse, and you're going to learn reasons why. Maybe the horse got spooked because the way you were riding it, or, learning why you got bucked off. Maybe there was an animal or something nearby or something like that. But that persistence is so important, because it doesn't matter what line of study you are in, you're going to get to the point where you've kind of hit a wall, and you have to figure out how you're going to push through that wall phase and make it to the next step. And then once you get into, I was talking with, someone in medical school, and she was asking me, she's getting ready to graduate, and she's asking me what it's like to take that next step, to go from a student to now you're in your career. And I said, well, I look back and I love being a student. There were a lot of benefits to being a student. Every one of my stressors as a student had a deadline. I had a big exam coming up that causes you some stress and anxiety. But then as soon as you take that exam, boom, the stress of that exam is behind you. Once you get out into the career and into the real world, the stresses don't have deadlines. You may have projects with a deadline, but you still have responsibility over your position, maybe responsibility over other people, and that doesn't go away. And so learning to be persistent, to work through some of those roadblocks or hurdles that you'll experience along the way can be very important. So being persistent is another important soft skill. And then too, just working with people, communicating with people, learning how to communicate. And you don't have to be an English major to communicate. But if you're sincere and you're wanting to get to know people, like I said earlier, regardless of what career you're looking into, if you want to get to know a career, to reach out to someone and to let them know that you're interested in them. If they see a sincere desire in you to learn, they're going to have a sincere desire to teach. And opportunities, windows, and doors are going to be opened if someone's just sincere and anxious to learn. And so that's an important thing too. And then the last one I'll mention is being teachable. I've been a dentist for 7 years. I've done a lot of procedures. I'm a dentist by license for 7 years. I was a dentist in training, for 4 more years. So I've been doing this for 11 years. I understand full well that I am not the expert of everything. There are certain things that I know that I'm really good at, and other things that I know that I'm continuing to work on and improve upon. And being teachable is so important. When I have an employee come and they're in a job interview and they're talking to me, and I ask him, so, are you familiar with this? Oh, I understand that completely. I start to wonder, how teachable is this person? And certainly I want all of my employees, when I hire them, to have some sort of base, but it's not a deal breaker if they don't, because if they demonstrate that they are teachable, that they are eager to learn, and that they're willing to work hard, then they can learn anything. And so I'd say a very important thing at your stage is to be teachable and be willing to take advice, be willing to listen to those that would love to talk with you, and just soak it in like a sponge. Think of yourself at this stage as a sponge. And when someone wants to sincerely help you, just soak it in and just take it. And then you'll get a few years down the road and you'll look back and you'll say, wow, that seemingly insignificant interaction from that person changed my life. And that's the power that people can have on each other. And so being teachable is a very important soft skill.
And when you were talking, I think for students to hear, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not know everything, but having the skill of being okay with getting that feedback and, taking the feedback and opportunities to learn is good. And, kind of knowing you and seeing, your level of your curiosity, talking, you like to work with your hands, build things, but then also learning from others and being able to reach out to others and learn from them, I think goes to show that, just being curious, just keep on learning just about anything and everything, and being able to have that level of understanding on, what I know now might not be what I need to know in the future, and being able to keep on going, because obviously more about how dentistry has evolved or is going to evolve. As someone in your field, what do you do once you're a dentist now? What do you do to keep on learning right now?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things that helps us is, as you become a dentist, you have to be licensed by a governing body, and that's the state. For me, it's the state of Idaho. Under that licensing contract, there are certain contractual obligations that I have to fulfill. Part of that is continuing education. And so there's a certain number of hours that I need to get every single year. And, about the half-life of your dental school training is about 5 years. So in 5 years after you graduate from dental school, about half of the techniques and the materials that you learned are obsolete. And I don't know what that half-life is for every career, but every career has a half-life of education. And in some cases, what you're learning in college will not be applicable once you graduate and get into that career. But let me make a point to that by saying, someone could then say, well, is it not important to learn that? If I'm not going to use it, should I not learn it? Well, I disagree with that, because part of your college experience is learning to learn, learning to be curious, like was mentioned. And it is a skill to learn and to want to learn. It is an acquired skill. Some people are naturally born curious. They're always tinkering. They're doing certain things. And for the rest of us, we are very persistent at trying to learn and to be curious. And so, like I've mentioned time and time again, if you feel like, you look around and someone's carrying a toolbox, they're good at math, they're good at reading, they're good at this, and then you're looking at your toolbox and you feel like you have one wrench in there. Well, that doesn't mean that you're not capable of anything. That means that you're exceptional at that one tool, and you have an incredible opportunity to pick and choose what other things you're going to fill your toolbox with. And so continuing education for me is a way that I can continually fill my toolbox and learn and freshen up and understand new techniques. And so that involves me flying to other locations to learn and study, which there's some really cool opportunities, that you can fly within the United States, but also out of the country that provide really cool experiences and opportunities as well to learn and to continually be curious and to grow. It's a good question.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dr. Bybee. Before we wrap up, what does a day in the life of a dentist look like? I know it's can be different, but what does a typical day look like for you?
Yeah, so I own my small business, and so there's kind of two elements to this question. There is I'm going to add a third. There's really three big elements to this. So in order of importance, family, and then you have your practice, and then you have kind of the business side of things. And so a day in the life of Dr. Bybee, myself. So I generally get up early. I spend some time with my family, and then I go to work. And I'm working on patients, and in between seeing patients and talking with friends and building relationships, I'm also paying bills on the side. Do some of the bookkeeping, calling companies to order supplies, and of course I have people that help me with those things, but there's a lot of smaller things that you wouldn't really consider or think that you'd have to do, but running all of those things, but really focusing in on the relationships of our patients and our staff, and that kind of transitions into the business side of things. And so there are some things that you have to work on in the evenings or on the weekends that keep the wheels on the bus and keep things moving so that the practice stays afloat. And you really have to find a balance. That's so important, is to balance the family opportunities, the work demands, and the practice demands. And so it's a lot of fun to be able to balance those things like that.
Well, again, thank you very much for meeting with us, Dr. Bybee, and being able to give us a glimpse on the field of dentistry and what it all entails. I know you've given us a lot of great information already, but what are some final thoughts that you have for our students, whether it's with dentistry or any other advice you can give?
Yeah, great question. I would say kind of reiterate what I said before, and I mentioned before that a lot of us will have something that we're really passionate about and that we would love to pursue, but either due to our family circumstances, our financial circumstances, or any other circumstance that's in front of us, that we may not feel that it's either possible or that we're capable of doing that. And that's something that you need to learn to get over. You need to overcome that hurdle and just say, you know what, it's quite possible that I may not be able to become a dentist, but I'm going to give it 110%, and I'm going to give it everything I've got. I'm going to work very hard. And if I get to the end of the road and I don't make it, then I'm going to look at the next best thing. And, of all of the people that I know that have that kind of determination, they haven't gone to the end of their road because they've reached their goal, whether that's becoming a dentist, whether that's becoming an engineer, or whatever else. And so I can't stress enough to understand, believe in yourself, find someone around you that believes in you and that can be your coach and your mentor along the way. And when you're starting to get tired, think of climbing Everest. When you're starting to get tired, that they can take your pack for you for a little while, and you just keep going and you'll make it. So don't ever count yourself out. And I think so often in life, we love to count ourselves out, like, oh, I'm not capable of that. Oh, that's not something I do. And never count yourself out, but rather push through it, and you'll find more times, 9 times out of 10, that you're actually more qualified to be doing something than you ever thought, or maybe perhaps than others around you. So just have some confidence in yourself, believe in yourself, because you can do it. I know you can.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much, Dr. Bybee, for sharing your knowledge with us. I appreciate it. And thanks for taking some time out of your day, and hopefully you enjoy the sun there in Boise, and we're starting to warm up a little bit over here. So again, thank you very much.
Awesome. Yeah, and if anyone has any questions, whether it be about dentistry, business, or they just say, hey, I just need a pep talk, I'm happy. Give them my number. People call me all the time to just talk through different scenarios or whatever, I'm more than happy to sit down and visit with people and help them to see something maybe that they can't see that I can easily see, or someone else. So happy to help in any way I can.
All right. Thank you very much. You have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Once again, I am just baffled on the wealth of knowledge and information our guests bring to the table. And today you heard it from Blake. I want to, one thing I wanted to touch on is, he kept going back to, you're capable of doing whatever you want to do. Hearing him talk about how understanding that we're all capable of doing what we want to do. Yeah, we might need to put in some more effort than other individuals, but if you want to do something, you can do it. You have the capacity to do so. And hopefully you came away understanding that, you don't have to be the best to do what you want to do. That you can go through and become a learner, like Dr. Bybee talked about, going to college or whatever training you do helps you become a lifelong learner. So another great episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Be on the lookout for our next one. See ya.